Good afternoon and welcome. I'm Tammy Wilson, and I'm the project lead on the California Dyslexia Initiative and a director at the Sacramento County Office of Education. I'm excited to have colleagues from across the state join us in this learning opportunity. This is the final webinar of our 23-24 CDI Expert Webinar Series. And in this series, we've been exploring the International Dyslexia Association's updated graphic on structured literacy instruction and sharing ideas about what educators need to know about the content and principles of high-quality structured literacy and that approach that is grounded in the science of reading. For today's webinar, we are really excited to feature the dynamic educator, Dr. Nancy Mather. To support our attendees, we've created a Padlet that will host the slides as well as a recording and a companion doc. The recording will be available in a few days, but the companion document and the slides and some handouts are already posted on the Padlet. Next slide. The Sacramento County Office of Education is the project lead on the California Dyslexia Initiative, and one of our goals is to disseminate professional learning opportunities within the system of support across California to build knowledge, skill, and capacity around teaching and supporting students who are at risk for or with dyslexia. We are really excited to partner with our friends and colleagues at Glean Education to deliver this expert webinar series. And it's my pleasure to turn the mic over to my colleague and friend, Jessica Hammond, founder and CEO of Glean Education, who is leading and coordinating these efforts.
Thank you, Tammy. We are thrilled to partner with SCOE and the California Dyslexia Initiative to coordinate the webinar series for a third year in a row. For those of you who may not know about us, we are Glean Education, and we partner with schools, districts, and states to deliver online training, school leader consulting, and web-based coaching. Our work aims to build educator knowledge of evidence-based literacy instruction and improve student literacy outcomes. Next slide, please. This is the 7th and final in a series of webinars this year on structured literacy. If you'd like to review the recordings from the past 3 years of webinars, please visit the link in the chat and you can watch them there. For this webinar, I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Nancy Mather. Dr. Nancy Mather is a professor emerita at the University of Arizona in Tucson. She has served as a learning disabilities teacher, a diagnostician, a university professor, and an educational consultant. She has published numerous articles and books, conducts workshops on assessment and instruction, both nationally and internationally. Her most recent book on dyslexia is Essentials of Dyslexia, Assessment and Intervention, 2nd edition, published in 2024. She is co-author of several widely used tests, including the Woodcock-Johnson 4 and the Test of Orthographic Competence. In addition, Dr. Mather and her co-authors have recently completed the Test of Dyslexia, a comprehensive assessment that is designed to help identify dyslexia in individuals of all ages. Dr. Mather recently received the 2023 Samuel Torrey Orton Award from the International Dyslexia Association for her contributions to the field of dyslexia. Please help me welcome Dr. Nancy Mather.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jessica. It's lovely to be here. And I have to say, I like that picture because I think it was about 15 years ago. And so I'm looking a little bit younger. But anyway, so I'm here in Tucson, Arizona. And, we do get like these amazing sunsets here. I mean, it's just, they're beautiful. And probably where you live, you don't see signs, like this. But I really prefer talking to a live audience. But so what I'll show you though is I made on my table, like I have my little audience there in front of me, just so I have someone to look at. But outside my window, Okay, there's this owl here, okay? He has been coming back for like 10 years. And I don't know when he comes, but he just shows up. And this year, look, he brought his wife from Mexico, I think, but two of them came. They're so cute. And then the other day, I'm, looking out at the pool, and look, there's a bobcat there, at the pool. And then what was kind of funny was, look, he had a bobcat pool party. He invited 3 bobcat friends over, and I thought this is funny because it looks like they're social distancing, doesn't it? Like they've decided they have to stay 6 feet apart. Anyway. All right, so just in terms of a conflict of interest statement, I briefly will mention test of orthographic competence, test of silent word reading fluency, WJ4, and the test of dyslexia, just briefly. So we're going to talk about the role of orthography in dyslexia and, in structured literacy. So what it is, how it affects reading and spelling development, what are ways we can assess for orthographic knowledge, and then we'll spend a few minutes just talking about what type of interventions can be really helpful for kids who struggle with orthography. So here's just some definitions related to orthography. The writing system of a language, spelling, punctuation, capitalization, orthographic processing, brain's ability to recall letter orientation, spelling patterns, words with both accuracy and speed, orthographic knowledge, the information you've stored in your memory about how spoken language is represented in writing, and then orthographic retrieval, being able to retrieve images of letters, word parts, and words. I did include for you, in the handout, a recent article Dr. Jaffe and I wrote just about orthographic knowledge, because I feel like this is an area that, often gets overlooked. So I've been thinking about this for a long time. This was an article we originally wrote in 1995. Just again about orthographic dyslexia, that it seems like more is going on than just weaknesses in phonological awareness. The major question I'm thinking about is, how can this be a phonological processing problem when you have a student who spells words exactly the way they sound? They spell them exactly the way they sound. And so it's not a problem with sounds. And so, there kind of has to be something else going on. I mean, here's Gary, he's in 5th grade, and you look at his writing, fantastic, amazing, colossal. I love this next one. Energy efficient. Isn't that good? Energy efficient, impervious, healthy, glorious. He's definitely, listening to sounds. When you look at the last line here, she called the police because the man behind turned on his high beams again and again, again and again. You can see he's got again spelled 4 different ways, right? On 2 lines. He has BD reversals. He's in 5th grade. He doesn't remember because there's 1 word. But what was cute about Gary was he finally learned how to spell the word police. And no matter what he wrote, every day the police came into the story. It didn't matter what was happening. He said, he said, I know how to spell a word. He was so excited he could spell police. But, even his math problems were 35 police plus 72 police. So, so recently there has been a little bit more attention, to orthography. The Scottish Rite Hospital wrote about, acknowledging orthography, orthographic knowledge, orthographic processing. But, essentially they said that, it's not a subtype of dyslexia, but just a component of it. But you have to wonder a little bit, because they make separable contributions to word recognition and spelling. They really contribute differently to reading and spelling problems, and they require different kinds of, interventions. So one thing we see, people who have weaknesses in orthography have unstable visual orthographic images. They'll know how to spell a word one day, and the next day they forget again, how to spell the word. I think we've all worked with students when they go away for summer vacation, you're just kind of like, oh, because you know when they come back in the fall, you're going to have to reteach them all the words, you taught them. But, here's Ethan, he's in 6th grade. You can see he's got, because spelled, 3 different ways, on a few lines. But, how do you know the correct spelling of a word? So if we look rain, rain, soap, soap, we can use phonological processing, but that doesn't help us identify the word because they both say, the same thing. And so the only way we know is we've seen it enough times. We've seen it enough times to have a stored image, of that word in memory. So Ambrose Bierce said, orthography is the science of spelling by the eye instead of the ear. And I think, that's kind of a nice definition. So the quality of the orthographic codes, how quickly you can access those codes, your knowledge of whole words, and then also, word parts. So this was a recent meta-analysis where they concluded that orthographic processing was as large a deficit as phonological awareness and rapid naming in individuals with dyslexia. And so individuals with dyslexia have a problem in orthographic knowledge, large as that of both phonological awareness and rapid naming. So this is just a little bit, more in-depth description. Orthographic processing, ability to accurately, rapidly form images, letters, spelling patterns, words, letter form, orientation, common letter combinations. When typical young readers sound out a word a few times, they remember it as a whole. Skill increases, they start noticing, they store images of frequently see words, letter combinations, and patterns. When they encounter it again, sound and meaning are activated. So when they see a word or word part many times, doesn't register as familiar, activate both sound and meaning when people have a weakness in orthographic processing because they don't recall the image, or the pattern. So consequently, these readers, they depend more on sounding out words for recognizing words, and they acquire sight words much more slowly, read less fluently. I think we can all think of a 2nd grade student we've worked with, and they're sounding out a little word like it. And you think, how many times do you have to see that word before you know it is a sight word? I mean, you're still sounding out simple words that should have been, automatized by then. So, retrieving images from memories and spelling. So, lots of times, again, for correct spelling, we look and we see, does it look right? For example, smoke and smoke, they're both phonetically accurate. Only one's the correct spelling. So knowing, again, which one is spelled correctly really depends on, orthographic knowledge. Now, this type of problem really has been described for over 100 years. Back in the early 1900s, they talked about word blindness, where you're not blind, but you're blind to printed words. Johnson and Michaelbus talked about visual dyslexia. Boder called it dyseieutic. Castles and Coulthart called it surface dyslexia. And so there's been several names in terms of describing kids who have this, weakness with orthography. We look back at Pringle Morgan, back in 1896, talking about a smart 14-year-old boy, says he seems to have problems storing up the visual impression produced by words. Hence, the words those seen have no significance for him. His visual memory for words is defective or absent, equivalent to saying he's what Kurzweil has termed word blind. I may add the boy is bright and of average intelligence and conversation. The schoolmaster who has taught him for some years says he'd be the smartest lad in the school if the instruction were entirely oral. And again, I know we've all worked with kids where you just think if you didn't have to read and write, you'd be the smartest, student in the whole school. Now, you don't see this kind of thing very often, but, this is a third grade student who did total mirror writing, and she actually had pretty good spelling. But I was at a conference once, I was talking about this difficulty, and this woman comes up to me, at the end, and she says, well, you ought to see what I can do, okay? So she took her right and left hands with two pens, and she wrote simultaneously exactly at the same time, saying that it's much easier for her to write backwards than forwards. And when she was little, she had reading and writing problems, but now as an adult, she only has trouble with speed and spelling. And again, that's what we see in adults with dyslexia is, still a slow reading speed and, difficulties with spelling. So, again, we've got morphology, orthography, and, phonology. And lots of times what we'll see is our students with dyslexia, you can see weaknesses in all three of these. So, so you can see weaknesses, in sounds, visual images of words, and also kind of, word meanings. So we have, again, these three codes. So, English is a hard language. So, there's a complex relationship between English phonology and orthography, right? We've got your tie and my tie. But have you ever noticed that all the cartoons about dyslexia are about orthography? If you look at cartoons about dyslexia, they're always about orthography, here we've got dyslexic dog breeds, and this one took me a while to figure out. Dyslexics the leading cause of traffic jams, at kitchen stores. Okay, pots and says it took. I was like, well, that's funny. Okay, why dyslexics have lower electric bills, right? Okay, and then if life hands you melons, you may have dyslexia. You may be dyslexic. Oh, and then dumbfounded is why their vehicles would only drive in reverse. Engineers, one of the more popular luxury automobiles, realized if they could not swiftly solve the problem, their car would have to be renamed the Dyslexis. Okay, and so again, all these are, plays on, orthography. So this was in front of Starbucks, his car. It's a Lexus, and look at their license plate. Now, it has to be somebody with dyslexia, don't you think? So we look at Dr. Airy's theory about, orthographic mapping, and the pronunciations of words, they're the anchors that we use. And mapping occurs when the words are decoded and spelled. And then sight words are learned by forming these connections between the letters seen, sounds already stored. And so our two most important phonological awareness abilities for mapping, are blending speech sounds and segmenting speech sounds. So Dr. Kilpatrick said the process readers use to store written words for immediate, effortless retrieval, means by which readers turn unfamiliar written words into familiar, instantaneously accessible sight words. And so, what starts out is you see a word in the graphemes like man, then you map it to the phonemes, and you blend it back together again. You see the word man. Now, what we see with typically developing readers, once they've seen a word about 1 to 4 times, they know it as a sight word. It's automatized, as a sight word. And when they see that word again, they know it as a whole. This process is really slow with our students with dyslexia. It's really, really slow. They can see it 20, 30 times, and it's still not, automatized as a sight word. So this process of orthographic mapping is just really slow. So English is a hard language to learn to read and spell. It can be understood through tough, thorough thought and though. We just look at all these words we have that are so confusing. So when a reader who has a limited sight word vocabulary is asked which word looks right, response is likely to be words never look right to me. They never look right to me. So how does orthographic processing affect reading development? trouble remembering sight words. They keep sounding out words even though they've had numerous exposures. They confuse little words that look alike, like of and for and who and how and on and no. Confuse similar looking letters in words. Slow word perception and slow reading rate, often into adulthood. So how does it affect spelling? So with spelling, putting the sounds in order requires phonological processing, particularly segmentation, right? We've got to break the word apart, got to put the sounds in order. But recalling the visual elements of word requires orthographic processing. So we need this for those letter sequences you can't sound out, as well as remembering the irregular part of words. So then you've got to use orthographic processing. So these kids have trouble learning how to form letters. Like in kindergarten, you're working with Tom, trying to teach him a T for 2 weeks. They continue to reverse letters and numbers past the age of 7, sometimes again, even into 4th, 5th grade. Trouble copying from a board or book. And one of the kind of main things to look for too is they spell words the way they sound, not the way they look. And so you'll notice again, they're really listening to sounds, but it doesn't look like the word, right? They spell the same word inconsistently on a page. They put letters next to each other. You're not allowed to put next to each other. So you might see a student starting a word with CK. Now we got to put that at the end of a syllable, end of a word, but they know that's the K sound, right? And, really, poor spelling into adulthood. I mean, here's June, she's 10 years old, from FRUM, right? Look at water, WHOTR, water, right? Cooked, KOUCT. And how many times have you seen once spelled like that? WUNS, right? And then we look at her writing samples test. Girl, GURLL, girl, right? Okay. You look at that last line down there. The dog is digging to bury his bone. Okay. And, again, we see, BD reversals. Now, this had to be somebody with dyslexia. This was in a store and the whole shelf was bread pots. Okay, I mean, but they were reduced. They were a bargain. They were $1.19. But it had to be somebody with dyslexia, right? And again, we'll see even with our older students, Brian, he's 16 years old. You look at suggestion, equipment, executive, correct, circle, CUR, COL. I think we've all been guilty of this at times. Sometimes I forget how to spell a word, so I change the whole sentence to avoid using it. And so I think we've all done this sometimes. So this is cute, he's writing chirp and he said, it needs a vowel. It needs a vowel, right? So he knows, it needs, a vowel. So phonology and orthography. With phonology, they don't put the sounds in order, they leave out sounds, they've got the wrong graphemes. They confuse similar sounding sounds like voiced and unvoiced consonants, confuse vowel sounds. With orthography, you'll see all the sounds are in the correct order, but the wrong letters, and you'll still see reversals. You'll see them spelling common high frequency words like they sound, not how they look. And they regularize the irregular element of a word. So you'll even see a high school student sometimes spelling SED. And you think, how is that possible? How many times have you seen that word? But that irregular part, they will regularize. So lots of times by just kind of doing in-depth look at their writing, you can see, where they're having difficulties. Amanda's in 3rd grade. She has weaknesses in phonological processing. She leaves out nasal sounds in front of stop consonants, confuses voiced and unvoiced consonants, bet for bed, done for down. She doesn't understand the digraph TH, confuses vowel sounds. makes errors on past tense, right? And then in contrast, we see Ainsley here, where her weaknesses aren't sounds, it's orthographic processing. We look at her spelling, said, SED, another, ANUTHR, brother, girl. She has reversal still and misspells high frequency words like were, said, does, and, has, really, good ideas. So questions to ask, in terms of print exposure, how much print exposure, and are sounds put in the right order? Are they accurate when a phoneme is represented by a single letter, but not when it's a multiple letter grapheme? Are spellings more accurate of regular words, nonsense words, and, real words, than of irregular exception words? And so sometimes again, the spelling is better when the word is regular because they're putting the sounds, in order. So just a couple examples of standardized assessment, of orthography. We recently published Test Orthographic Competence, the second edition of that, and essentially, it's a sophisticated spelling test, essentially. But, there's 6 subtests: punctuation, abbreviations, sight spelling. They have to fill in the missing letters. And they're the irregular element, plus the letter. Homophone spelling, they have to choose, figure out the right spelling. Word scramble, they have to form words, 3 minutes. Letter choice, they're shown rows of words, there's a letter missing, and they have to put in the missing letter. And, we see this is even difficult for high school students with dyslexia. They're just slower in choosing P, D, B, or Q. I mean, even though they know now, they're just still not, as automatic with that. And then there are 5 conventions. Another easy to use orthography measures is test of silent word reading fluency we did. And it has very high correlations with the test of orthographic competence. And so what you do in this test is the words are all squished together. And so you got to put a slash every time it becomes a new word. And so for somebody with a weakness in orthography, just seeing the word, right? So, that is very, very difficult. So, as Jessica mentioned, we just finished a test of dyslexia and just came out in 2024. It took 10 years, but COVID slowed us down, a little bit. But we've got several orthography measures in there. There's a letter and word choice test where they have 4 choices. They have to choose the one that's spelled correctly when the examiner says the word. So they say park. And then word pattern choice, I have to choose the one that looks most like English, okay? And then there's irregular word spelling, irregular word reading, and rapid irregular word reading. So quite a few measures of orthographic processing. There's also lots of informal measures you can do, just seeing how they do with exception words, both reading and spelling. Homophone, where they've got to choose the correct spelling. Letter string choice, looking at their writing samples, looking at their spelling tests. So these are just examples of exceptional words that have an irregular element. And so you can ask a student to read these or spell these and then just see what they do with them. See, how they do with them. The homophone choice task, which is the correct spelling for a flower, rose or rose, which is related, rose, flower or flower. And again, letter string choice tasks, which one looks more like English? Okay, so Matthew is in 5th grade. And so I show him a word, I show him they, and then I cover it up and I say, write it from memory. Okay, and then we do again, we do could, because, look at once there, he's just looked at that. I cover it up and he writes WUNS. Okay, and so again, you can see he just can't retain, the image, of the word. So then I show him the word science. And I say, okay, tell me when you're ready to write it from memory. So he writes it. I show him again. He writes it. I show him again. He writes it. He show him again. I show him. He can't do it. He can't do it. And so I say, okay, Matthew, just go ahead and copy the word science. So in order to copy the word science, he looked up there 6 times. 6 times. He wrote an S, then he came back down, then he looked back up and he wrote a C, and then he looked back up. And so you just think how difficult it is to learn to spell when you can't get a visual image, of a word. And so, we see these students again. Ethan's in 5th grade, people, Peepull, right? Remember, and, oftentimes too, you're going to see discrepancies between their oral language and their written language, between their reading and spelling. Their reading's better than their spelling, and between spelling and their ability to express their ideas. Okay, so here's just a couple, examples of this. Ethan's in 6th grade. While he was soaring in the air, a small village, he snatched up 2 of the town peoples. It was a disaster. Town peoples were, look at terrified. As a dragon flew by, an old wizard through the trees. Town was on the edge of a forest. Wizard said to him, I bet those 2 are rich. They're riding on a dragon, but that dragon looks look, it's suspicious. Suspicious, right? Okay. Aaron in 6th grade, we look at his ideas. My name's Fred. I'm the most unique mystical creature on the planet. I can travel through time dimensions. But then we look at his spelling. One day, me and my wife talked about doing some time traveling. We did not know where we wanted to travel. He doesn't have we spelled right. He doesn't have where spelled right. He doesn't have look spelled right. Anyway, she brought it over at Red Planet Earth. I thought about it. I realized we've never visited this planet. That's when the trouble began. It's a great story, but here's a bright boy again, where you look at his spelling, and you just realize, how hard it is for him. And just another 5th grade student, you see backwards J's. Look at the spelling of exact, Egzakt. It looks nothing like English. They, Thay, okay, have, Hav, backward J on just. So, as we all know, one rule of English spelling is you rarely, if ever, a few times, but you don't end a word with V. Well, most children learn that in 1st grade. You add an E when a word ends in a V, But, Jupiter is made of gas and maybe Venus. Made and maybe spelled exactly the same way, right? And you got to watch this last sentence. In the future, people will live on Mars. But just again, these discrepancies between, spelling. And, actually, when he dictates his story, it goes on like 4 or 5 pages. He knows so much, but his spelling is so difficult for him. And so, but when he's allowed to dictate. So here he's just talking a little bit about it.
All right, so I'm writing the sticky over from me from the side. I kind of do this. So you can see how horrible my spelling was. My letters, they were huge. And I would look over at the other kids and I would see that their writing was very neat, under control, and I would tell my handwriting. I kind of want to hide it. Spencer, in your handwriting, did you have the choice not to use cursive? Did you always have to use cursive, or could you? When my printing is as bad as my cursive. But I feel more comfortable with printing. Yeah, I feel more comfortable with printing. I can read it better too. So multiplication was extremely hard for me. Just like spelling, I felt, what is this doing to me? Do you have it now? What? Multiplication, do you understand it now? Yes, I have a better understanding of it. And then I'll show you how to do it. When you have Is my writing backwards there?
No. This way, why do you think that is? Like,
Probably just, again, my handwriting works. When you stop the letters.
It's just a little hard to remember which way to
Yeah.
put it.
But then see, at first they thought that it was only a physical problem. Nothing like what it is, really.
What is it?
It's learning. I can't spell, I can't write right. I'd make a good doctor.
I'd be a good doctor. Anyway, you can see how bright he is, right? And you know, he's in 5th grade and he has to ask if his 5 is backwards, you know? So anyway, well, just to take a minute now, just to kind of talk about some interventions, accommodations, you know, modifications. So lots of times these kids are going to need extended time on high stakes tests or shorter assignments. Asking them to read a specific amount of time, not a certain number of pages, having them read, you know, with a partner. When we're talking about spelling, we can use an analogy of a traffic light and say, you know, about 70% of our words are green. If you listen to them carefully, you'll spell them right, right? And then we've got these patterns you've got to learn. You got to slow down a little bit. And then we've got slam on your brakes words. You got to memorize them. You got to memorize them. But there aren't that, aren't that many of them. So spelling tests, phonetically regular words, so you make sure they're putting the sounds in order, teaching a common spelling pattern, you know, like IGHT, and all the words have that pattern, shorter word lists, doing daily testing instead of weekly testing, giving partial credit for good spelling on spelling tests. So when it's a good spelling that, you know, they do, earn some credit. Sometimes too, some of the multimodal tracing kinds of things really help some students. And it helps with memory, and you say the word as you're tracing the word, kind of can help with handwriting too. But you know, the reason I think tracing is effective with some of our students too is you have to look at each letter. And you're looking at the letter as you say it. And so it reinforces those connections, you know, and helps you do that orthographic mapping. They have to write the word from memory, you know, and not copy it. And so when we look kind of back at the work of, you know, Grace Fernald, she talked again about using a right say method. So you say it, have the students say it, they pronounce the word as they trace it. Excuse me, many times is needed till they can write the word from memory. They write the word correctly 3 times, put it in a word bank, then they review it periodically to, you know, make sure they can read it, you know, with ease. This is another easy thing to do. Talk to yourself chart. It's a little easier to follow this when you have an example in there, but so the word is right. When I stretch the word, I hear 3 sounds. It. There are 3 letters. It takes IGH to represent the I sound. Spelling pattern is IGHT. This is what I know about the vowel. Vowel is a spelling pattern, makes a long I sound. Another word I know with the same vowel sound is ride. Other words that share the same spelling pattern are light, fight, flight, right, night. So just an easy thing to do with students again, where they're really listening, they're thinking about the spelling patterns, they're thinking about words that share that spelling pattern. Kathy Grace's book, Phonics and Spelling Through Phoneme Graphing Mapping is really a good book to teach orthographic mapping. So the 2 questions you ask are, what do you hear and what do you write? So 1 token is 1 sound. You start out with regular words, then you introduce consonant blends, introduce digraphs, introduce, you know, silent letters, introduce, you know, vowel digraphs. And so, you know, again, vowel and consonants go in 1 box, consonant blends go in a separate box with a circle around them. Letter X goes in the middle because it makes, you know, 2 sounds. And last consonant, small e, go in a box with an arrow, you know, pointing back. Double consonants, you know, go in one box. And, you know, kids actually think this is kind of fun and interesting. And again, you're really working on, you know, helping them develop, you know, orthographic mapping. Yeah, another program you might want to look at is Spell Links, where they teach again orthographic mapping, foundational skills, combining, you know, letters and sounds. So spelling patterns, exception words, these are the hard ones. So a few words at a time, lots of review, keep a personal list for a student, post it on a word wall or on their desk. So if you know that there's certain high frequency words that they misspell, just keep that list right on their desk so they can always check it, you know. Teaching related spelling patterns together when possible, like the, you know, would, could, should family. So Ben was in 5th grade, and so he was spelling would, W-U-D, could, C-U-D, right? And so, you know, what we said to him is, okay, when you write could, would, should, say, oh, you little dog. Oh, you little dog. And so he never misspelled would, could, and should again, but you'd see him sitting there writing on his paper, oh, would, oh, you little dog. He probably still says that. I mean, you know, but he just needed some kind of mnemonic, you know, to help him with the pattern. So with some of these tough words, you can, you know, think of some kind of creative mnemonics to help them, you know, master, like, because, you know, big elephants can always understand small elephants, right? Okay. And so that they master, you know, these basic words. So, you know, principles of irregular word instruction, highlight the irregular part, have them spell the word letter by letter, say the word, increase the rate, several words, keep it in a word box, you know, systematic review. So I think this is an easy way to do it. Okay, so you draw a heart around the irregular part of the word and you say, this is the part you have to memorize by heart. Okay. And then have them say the sounds of the regular letters, the letter names of the irregular part, and highlight that irregular part. So you're really drawing attention to it, okay? Because these are, again, you know, the tough words, you know, to spell, you know, chow, chow, meow. You know, also doing a spelling flow list with our kids where you do daily testing of a few words, keep the list on till it's spelled correctly, weekly review, take the words that a student is misspelling in their writing or use a high frequency list, and daily testing until they master it, they get it right. 3 times in a row, it goes in a word box. You check it a week later. If it's right, it goes back in. If it's not, it comes back on the list again. And so this just gives lots of practice till they master, you know, these basic words, high frequency words. Okay, so we're just going to look at some examples, you know, of principles of spelling instruction. And so, you know, we don't count out for spelling if it isn't a spelling test, right? And so, you know, it's like, base form, past participle, that's pretty hard. You know, don't ask kids to edit their own work. It just gets worse. It just gets worse, right? Select words at the students, you know, instructional level. I mean, so Cody's in 5th grade here, and you look at street, S-E-R-T-H-E-S-T. He's not even putting the sounds in order, right? But, you know, you have to laugh a little bit about the comment, Cody, the holes should be on the other side. Okay, now I don't know about you, but I don't really care about the holes on the index paper when I see spelling like this. It's like, you know, it reminded me of this cartoon. Oh, great, now there goes my hat. But, you know, it's like, oh my gosh, anyway. Don't ask struggling kids to write their spelling words 5 times. It's ineffective. And, you know, by the end, it doesn't even, you know, look like the word. Warren is in 8th grade. He's missing all the spelling words. And look at this. write it 50 times, write it 20 times again, Peter, right, where it's so small. It's like, but Goblin started out right, but by the end it's wrong. Frankenstein never stood a chance. But do you remember when you were little, like you had to write your spelling words and like grave, you'd write all the G's and then you write all the R's and then you'd write all the A's, but you just really weren't paying too much attention. So we want to make sure they write words from memory, don't copy words or, write them, and choose high frequency words, okay? Number 15, Rosetta Stone. Now, why in the world do you have to learn to spell Rosetta Stone? You'll never write that in your whole life. I mean, and he probably should have gotten bonus points on economy. I think that's better than economy, right? Economy, it's a better spelling. But, you look at these words, this is a boy with dyslexia, and you think amulet. When is his life, is he ever going to write amulet, again? So we really have to concentrate, on the important, words. And so, we really we want to mark the number of words right, not the number of words wrong. Okay, so this is a 3rd grade student. She has dyslexia. Look at number 4, unusual. That's really good, isn't it? Unusual. But, look at her teacher's comment. Good, on Wednesday, let's work on this together, happy face. So she's gonna feel okay, right? So anyway, don't assign students words they can't spell. Ivan's in 8th grade. He accidentally got a word right. And he gave himself the star there, and his teacher says, study to take over. He studied, he can't read these words. So, they're too hard, right? So we want to change the difficulty level when kids are missing too many. So, and, it's important to encourage neat handwriting because, the truth of it is, if a paper is neat, people are forgiving about spelling. Okay, they really are. And so, encouraging kids to develop, neat handwriting. So this is a 5th grader.
A man went to a psychiatrist. The psychiatrist says, "What's your problem?" The man says, "My wife thinks she's a chicken." The psychiatrist says, "How long has you had this problem?" The man says, "For 2 years." The psychiatrist says, "For 2 years? Why didn't you do anything about it?" The man says, "Because we needed the eggs."
Yeah, I think this is an old Woody Allen joke, but anyway, you can see his difficulties with spelling and things like that, but you just again see his writing is neat. He's trying the best he can. So really important, to get nice handwriting. Working on the fluency aspect, rapid word recognition charts where you just time them, reading irregular words for a minute and how fast they can go, keep track of them. And if you go to the Nye House Center too, they have a rapid recognition chart creator where you can print out 5 different charts with the words in different order so that they can't just memorize the words. And anyway, and so that you can just generate by putting in the words, it'll print out for you, and you can do it with letters, you can do it with sounds, you can do it with math facts, you can really do it, with anything. I think this is, a really nice idea that Nancy Redding had when talking about lookalike words for orthographic mapping. And so doing a rapid word recognition chart where you do words where they just change a little bit. And so you really have to look closely to pronounce the word correctly. And so they can't guess at the words. And it really helps build the mental habit of you got to look at all pieces. You got to look at all the word, right? Not just the first letters, et cetera. So I think, that's another really nice procedure for helping students improve their, orthographic mapping. Well, our kids go out there and get jobs and, you see things like this, right? So I wonder how long that stayed like that. But Anyway, so, what's really important, as we all know, in terms of literacy is having well-trained teachers. And there's nothing, more important than that when we're talking, about literacy. And fortunately, there's so many of you now that it's wonderful. It's wonderful. And, our kids really do appreciate it. Danny's in 5th grade. He's got severe dysgraphia, and he wrote to his teacher. He said, "Dear Miss Caseman, thank you for helping me with my writing this year. You listened to my ideas. Have a great summer. Have a great summer," and, then we've got Peter here. "Miss O, I'm sorry I called you an old goat today. You've really helped me with my writing this year," right? Your friend, Peter. So, these kids, really do, appreciate our help. And so again, we want to make sure that, we all unite to help our students, with dyslexia. So I really appreciate all you all do, Glean, and all you teachers, and again, all you do in terms of, helping our kids, with dyslexia. So that was a quick overview of orthography, and we do have now just a few more minutes to take some questions.
Great. Well, thank you so much for that incredibly informative presentation. We could have heard at least an hour more, so I'm glad we get some time for questions. I wanted to quickly mention a few things before we do dive into the questions. We have a companion document that we provide with each webinar, and that can be found along with the recordings at scoe.net/CA Dyslexia. So you can head to the link in the chat or to that address. CDI is also hosting a free virtual conference June 11th through 12th. The theme is screening, instruction, and intervention in an MTSS framework. The keynote speakers are Dr. Marianne Wolf, Dr. Elsa Cardenas-Hagen, and Lula Kovelman. And so one more last thing for the next slide, which will stay up as we ask the questions. Finally, please fill out this survey. It's important for us to hear how this went for you. So the link is in the chat. Okay, the first question, we have quite a few questions. So the first question we have is, we've heard a lot about the coincidence with orthographic knowledge and dyslexia. Can you talk a little bit about orthographic knowledge and dysgraphia?
Yeah, and that's a really good question, because essentially orthographic knowledge is more related to dysgraphia than dyslexia, but it can affect both. But we have cases sometimes where it's just dysgraphia, and their reading is fine because reading's easier. They can recognize words and they read pretty well, but it's their spelling, and so it's dysgraphia. And so essentially, again, since orthographic knowledge is related to your knowledge of writing, it's really most closely related to written language and spelling. But as we know, with our kids with dyslexia, many of them struggle with both word reading and spelling, right? So, but that's a really good question.
Great. Another question we have is, if you are a school psychologist or a teacher doing evaluations, how would you suggest that they order the formal testing materials, and which ones should they always have in their docket?
Well, you see, that's sort
Specifically the ones that you created too.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's obviously, well, I think you'll love the test of dyslexia. I'm really excited about it, just because it's co-normed with rating scales too. So you have both your test information as well as information from teachers, parents, and the student. And so I think that's a great tool to have. But we have so many good assessment tools out there. And of course, I'm sort of biased to Woodcock-Johnson 4 and tests I've worked on, but there's, CTOP 2. There's a lot of really great tests out there. And
Okay.
the thing is too, these tests are just tools that clinicians use to figure out the problem. And our hope is, no matter who's doing the testing, we all come up with the same answer. You know, it doesn't matter which tools we're using, but we're going to come up with the same answer, that this is this, and this is what we need to do. And so there's different ways to get there.
Okay, great. Thank you. What are your thoughts on teachers encouraging phonetic spelling in early grades? It's something that happens a lot here in California specifically.
You know, I think that's in sort of, in terms of beginning spelling, I think that's a good kind of first step, because your first goal is to get them to put sounds in order, get them to listen to sounds and sequence sounds. Once they can put the sounds in order, then we want to teach spelling patterns and start, you know, exception words and things like that. But our first goal is children are just learning to spell, is put the sounds in order. You know, and it's kind of interesting. Sometimes again, with first grade students, they spell better than they read because they're listening to the sounds, you know, and so then they're putting the sounds, you know, down. But I think that's an excellent first step. But, you know, sometimes you'll hear someone say, well, he's inventing his spelling. I'm sorry, he's in 6th grade. It's too late to be inventing your spelling. You know, it's too late. Right. So it's just, but it's the early first step. It's a good idea.
So do you have a recommendation that, starting in 1st grade, or do you have a date cutoff that you say they should be learning the conventions by that time?
It really has to be based on the student by student.
Okay,
You know, you can't just say like they should have it by such and such. When they can put sounds in order, you move on.
got it.
So yeah, you just got to look at, can they put the sounds in order? If they can sequence sounds in order, move on. But if they're still stuck and leaving out sounds and things, that's the first step. That's the first thing. That's the first step.
Okay, great. Thank you. You shared with us a lot of really great supplements for remediation and the work around orthographic processing. Do you have any core curricula that you are partial to that you would recommend?
Oh, hmm, 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 hmm. You know, it depends, you know, like something that covers everything, you know, I'm not really familiar too much anymore with those, you know, what's out there. You know, but I mean, there's, you know, great programs like Louisa Motz's Spellography is really a lovely program for, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th grade. I mean, so there's great programs for specific things. And I'd have more knowledge about that than I would about like adopting a big, you know, curriculum.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you. So we just have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Can you speak to the importance of immediate error correction after spelling errors? If a teacher is conducting a spelling test or doing instruction, is that something you recommend, that they're correcting spelling all the time, or do you let students make their spelling errors and kind of teach the correct way afterwards?
Ideally, it would be immediate feedback, ideally, but that means you're small group or 1-to-1. So if you have a class of 25 kids, there's no way you can do that. So, right. So, but ideally, immediate feedback, you know, is the best. And so the closest it can be, the better. But, you know, if you've got 25 kids you're giving a spelling test to, that you can't do that. So, yeah.
Okay, 1 last question. My understanding from one of our participants says, my understanding is that reversals are not a sign of dyslexia, but a product of mirror invariance. Can you explain?
Well, I'm thinking when you say mirror and variance, I'm thinking back about, you know, Strepho Symboli, Orton's theory about, you know, you got the reversed image in your, you know, mirror images in your brain. But I would disagree with that in terms of, I would say reversals are a sign with dyslexia after a child has been exposed to the alphabet systematically for a year and they're still reversing letters, it becomes atypical. And you'll see 5th graders still making backwards letters, you know, and again, it just shows you how many times have you seen that letter and you still don't know which direction it goes, right? I mean, so again, it just really points out a weakness in orthography. And so I do think reversals and transpositions of words, on and no, saw, was, I think it is related to dyslexia, and particularly the orthographic piece. Now, we also have some sound confusions, like with voiced and unvoiced consonants and things that they're not reverse letters, they're confusing, the B and the P because of the sounds and things. So, but when it's BD and things like that, typically it's weak orthography, orthographic processing,
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. Well, that's all we have time for today. But Dr. Mather, I want to thank you for your time and the excellent presentation you produced on behalf of Glean Education, the Sacramento County Office of Education, and the California Dyslexia Initiative. And thank you also to our wonderful attendees. It's been an incredible 3 years of learning with you all and nearly 30 hours of free expert-led content. If you'd like to review those past webinars, please do visit the link in the chat.
And thank you so much for having me, and good to see you all. I appreciate it.
Thank you. It was a most wonderful way to end this series. An excellent,
you.
excellent webinar.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much. Take care, everyone. Have a
Bye.
great day.
Well, thank you so much. That was great. And I'll see you all soon.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
And Nancy will be in touch over email.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, talk soon.